Okay, good morning, everybody. I will call this meeting to order at 10 a.m. First order of business, we will have Tim Berry do the U.S. pledge, followed by James Martin, the Texas pledge. Thank you again. Before we start, I would entertain a motion for excused absences of Commissioner Bernstein.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for excused absence. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Excused absence is granted. Wow, what a big turnout. Not only is it a big turnout, but all our mics are hot. So this is going to be really, really interesting. So first of all, thank you for attending. This is our second TREC commission meeting that's not in Austin. We were in Houston last year. We're going to try to do it once a year. That way we can get out with our licensees and y'all can actually kind of see what happens behind the scenes at TREC. We've got just incredible staff, and I'm going to recognize them first for putting everything together for this to make possible. So, staff, if you'll stand up, we won't give y'all a hand. Second thing, there's a lot of volunteers out here. I see a lot of people that sit on the TREC advisory committees or subcommittees or working groups or whatever. And if you're a volunteer at TREC, will you please stand up? I don't know if it's in this year's budget or next year's budget, but every volunteer, your pay will be tripled in 25, okay? So for the simple math people, 0 times whatever number is still 0, okay? The good news is you can get up to 4 hours CE, okay? That used to be only at the February meeting, and we had a rule change where you get 4 hours of CE at any TREC meeting. Let me kind of give you a layout on what's going to happen today. We will go through the agenda. Fortunately, it's a shorter agenda than normal. We will move stuff around the agenda to help accommodate people that traveled in for a report and have to travel back. We will get it to as much business as we can. We do have a contested case. We will open the contested case up. Then after a little bit of discussion on it, we will break into executive session. At that time, we'll determine if it's an hour and 15 minutes. During that time, we will be in recess. We will come back. We will re-adjourn the meeting. And then we will finish the contested cases and finish the agenda. So if I jump from agenda item to agenda item, it is strictly on purpose for timing to try to accommodate people's travel schedules and stuff like that that came in. I want to start, first of all, my name is Scott Kestner. I have the privilege of serving as chairman of the Texas Real Estate Commission, and I'm from El Paso, Texas. We have 4 offices. I'm an active broker. I was helping a new agent with the repairs just before the meeting starts. So I feel your pain, okay, as far as, licensees running around. But I want to start with Commissioner Hargraves. I want each commissioner to give a brief introduction of what type of member they are and where they're from and a little bit about them. Jason, Commissioner Hargraves.
Jason Hargraves, I'm a public member, first appointed in 2019, and I am here local from the DFW area.
Renee Harvey, Paris, Texas. We have offices in Bonham, Harris, and Clarksville, Texas. I am a broker member.
Mark Woodruff, Houston, Texas, broker member. I've been on, I think, 3 years now. We have offices throughout the greater Houston area, so live your life every day.
My name is Ben Pena. I'm from Brownsville, Texas, Rio Grande Valley.
I'm Leslie Lerner. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm a broker member. My name is Chance Brown. I'm a broker member from Houston, Texas. I've got 5 offices there and 1 office in Austin.
My name is Barbara Russell from Denton. Just get your mouth closer to the mic.
Okay, like I said, you will get up to 4 hours of CE. There is a public comment section, agenda item 12. There are sheets in the back if you'd like to sign up for public comment. We will certainly welcome you to do that. If it's talking about the NAR, DOJ, anything like that, that will probably be taken under agenda item number 7 and not 12. So if you've signed up for 12 and it is an agenda item that we get to before that, like the agenda item 7, please let us know. And when you make your public comment, we will welcome all public comment. There might be some comment made that you will not get a response. Maybe we don't have an answer, we don't know an answer. But just like when we get public comments on forums or whatever, it is taken back to the commission, it's taken back to the advisory group, task force, whatever is studying that, to do a deep dive and see how we can best answer or take care of that comment. I don't want anybody to think that any of the comments they make to TREC are not treated because we look at every one of them. And you'd be surprised how many great ideas we get from the public comments. So please keep that in mind. Just real quick, we just got back from ARELO, which is the Association of Real Estate Regulators and Licensing, basically the TRECs of all the states and then some also in Canada. And we always get back from ARELO with one common denominator. Thank goodness we're in Texas. I mean, it's just, you know, they talk about, well, we're going to double our hours to get a license. We're going to go from 27 to 54. Or we're going to double CE hours from 10 to 20. There's just so many things that I think we do really well in Texas. And I think when we go, Commissioner Lerner was there, I think we're the shining star. But we learned something from it. That's where we first heard of the MV Realty. That's where we first heard of that. There was a lot of discussion on wholesaling. So anyway, it's really good to go there and be from Texas and realize we do a lot of things that are great and correct, but there's always room for improvement. And so we just got back from that. Broker lawyer committee is working really hard on some different forms and some different things to help address some of the stuff going out in the real estate world. And, you know, please remember we're regulated by the legislature, you know, but you know, they're working really hard. We're glad to be here. We're glad you're here. And the staff will give reports. Each staff member will tell you a little bit about what they do and what the report is. And we will get through this. So sit back and let's go ahead and start. First I'm going to move agenda item, I believe it's 25 up next, which is Pam Cannon with the A&M Research Center. She traveled in from Aggie Land. Hey, let's hear it for their baseball team. Yeah, okay, and welcome.
You might remember Gary Mailer, who held that position for a long time, has now stepped aside, and we're in transition, and I have assumed those responsibilities. So I'm glad to be here. Chelsea asked me to bring in market trends, a little update. And I think I'm not going to say a lot that you probably don't already know. Things that you're hearing in the news, you're reading about already, you're experiencing. In general, the Texas economy is pretty resilient, and we've seen that over and over in the years. It probably is a combination of good, sound policy, but in addition to that, we've had a significant in-migration and new business. As of April, business applications are up 5% year over year, and Texas leads the nation in attracting corporate business, with applications up over 2.5% year over year. Population is now over 30 million, and we have a strong labor participation rate. The Houston Metro and Dallas Metros now continue to hold their place as the 5th and 4th largest metros in the country. Right here in our state, in San Antonio, Austin is coming up behind them. We forecast at the center that economic outputs will continue to increase, probably between 3 and 4% in the next year. I am not an economist. I'm telling you what I'm learning from our researchers, what the talk in-house is, the findings, what they're watching, what they're thinking about. Commercial real estate has been on the news every day. People are watching the debt, the potential $1 trillion debt that is supposed to roll over in the next year. And with having such large cities in our state, it's probable that we'll have some stress. But Texas leads the nation in another ways that we find that the data reporting about office door swipes is showing that Texas has the highest utility rates compared to other states and especially in our large cities. Many large companies are calling people back into the office. You hear that on the news, and people are responding, but still somewhere between 45 and 65% of office space is utilized. About a third of workers are in the office full-time. Not like pre-COVID, right? Many employers who are desperate to have employees return are bolstering their amenities. They're offering more things. They're offering social areas, game rooms, and designing spaces to meet the needs of individuals for lighting, temperature, and that sort of thing. Green spaces are becoming more and more prevalent. Aesthetics are important, as is just environmental issues where employees want to work in environmentally safe areas. And so there's a lot of movement in the industry to provide these extra things. But many areas of commercial real estate are doing very well, retail, industrial. Some rents are increasing, but as you know, the best properties are always in high demand. On the residential side, demand for housing remains very high. Even though home mortgage rates have slightly ticked downward since the end of last year, residential starts have remained very stable. We project that sales volume will increase slightly as the pricing edges downward. We're already seeing some of that in some of our cities. People are becoming more accustomed to higher mortgage interest rates, and they're no longer waiting for those interest rates to drop below 5%. However, if prices stabilize, then we may see sales volume tick up or at least flatten. Some people will have to wait longer to build up their down payment to buy that next home. Inventories are growing slightly as well. So the average home price, or the median home price in Texas, is around $340,000. Obviously, that depends on where you are, where you live. Multifamily should continue to also tick downward over the year, but starts are very low, which keeps demand high. On rural land, I'm looking at a column that one of our researchers wrote called Land Insights, and he tells us that rural land markets will continue to be subdued throughout the first quarter. Total dollar volume and acreage statewide is stable and slightly moving downward. Price per acre, though, is still ticking upward, just not quite as quickly as in the past. So the center is also watching a couple of major economic factors. One of those is just land use. What does it take to convert raw land into productive service, whether ag or energy, housing or commercial? How much land is available to make this conversion? At what cost? And how do we find more land in our cities? How do we find buildable lots in some of our larger cities where housing is in great demand? Another thing we're watching is the rising cost of insurance. Risk and rates are fluctuating. There's normally a lag relationship between events, But we plan to spend some time this year doing more analytics into real estate and risk issues. We expect that to be an ongoing study throughout the year. And there are other headwinds, as you know. Inflation continues to tick slightly higher. It's not at the level that they want to see it. Litigation factors in. And of course, just last week, there was a terrible blow experienced by the Houston area in that no-name storm. And I guess I read this morning, still, 250,000 people without power. So that's a big blow for the Houston area to absorb. And they will, as they have in the past, they will. But it'll take a little time to rebuild that area. So we would agree that the Texas real estate environment is complex. Being an enormous state and having so many factors to consider, but we have a very positive view of the industry. We're better positioned than other states, as we have been for many years. And as was just said, Texas is a good place to live, right? Business environment is strong. We're attracting more players to the state. We have a high-level workforce, and that will continue to increase the general economics. So that's a bird's eye view. Certainly, there's a lot more to find on our website, but I am glad to be here, and thank you.
Thank you so much for the update. And let me stress, their website is just incredible with information. If you've not been on it, I strongly encourage you to do that. And you're talking about, people without electricity. Actually, Commissioner Lerner still does not have electricity, and so she certainly feels your pain. Okay, we are going to take a 5-minute break while they open up the other side. The attendance is beyond expectations, so we're just going to break for just a minute while they do that. Okay. Anybody that says that TREC is not flexible and cannot turn on a dime does not know this staff, okay?
That's right.
That being said, we have one more curveball. Some of you were here in the hall unable to sign in. I am going to we're going to have you sign in on the next break. The next break might be lunch. So if you have not signed in, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to get signed in. Normally, we say you have to be here by a certain time. With everything going on, if you're signed in for CE credit and you sign out, you will get the CE credit, okay? Because this was probably a little more than we expected, and legal is raising their hand, which is never a good thing.
My voice. Is it doing it now? Okay, great. Okay, so you cannot hear me?
Get closer.
Just kiss it.
Okay, wow, there it is. Okay, so what we're saying is that if you are here and you want the CE credit, we normally cut that off at the chair's opening remarks. However, just because we've got so much going on, so many folks here, we've taken this break, what we're asking right now is if you have not signed in or if you were turned away earlier because of the timing of it and you want that CE credit, right now we're going to do about a 2-minute window break before we really start for you to go get signed in to the extent there's anyone. And if no one gets up, then we will not take that 2 minutes, but want to go ahead and give you that opportunity just because this is a little bit different and it's a really neat opportunity for you to get that CE credit. But this is the window. Also, you have to sign out. Don't forget that part. It's very important. Right, Jen? I got it all? Okay, so important.
Okay, we have a few going to sign in, or else they all got a phone call at the same time. I'm not sure.
You're probably good.
What a turnout.
Yeah.
Okay, we are good to go. We will come back in. Agenda item number. First of all, Joanne Justice, former commissioner, you're here. Please stand up. Thank you. Thank you for all you did and you continue to do for this great profession in Texas. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 4, report by the Education Standards Advisory Committee. Chair Bill Stedham.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The Education Standards Advisory Committee met virtually on April 1st. The committee considered the Commission's feedback on their recommendation to propose Principles 1 and 2 to be required as prerequisites to any other pre-licensing courses, and we decided to table the discussion. ESAC reviewed the contents revisions to Principles of Real Estate 1 and 2 and the Law of Agency courses, and after hearing from one public comment, recommended those forms come before the Commission for proposal at today's meeting. The committee discussed future considerations to include possible legislative initiative to give the Commission authority to establish by rule both qualifying course content and pre-license education requirements for sales agents, similar to the last legislative session when the same was accomplished for brokers. Additionally, ESAC will review and consider making recommendations regarding the final exam proctoring requirements for qualifying courses and the photo ID requirement for live and virtual broadcast courses. The next ESAC meeting is scheduled to take place at 10 a.m. on July 8th at TREC headquarters.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your report. Next up will be a report on the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee. Chair Ty Williams.
Got to adjust this mic a little bit here. Good morning, Commissioners, and welcome to North Texas. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking the time out to experience our great area. So thank you for being here, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We've got a lot to discuss. We've been discussing a lot for years, and that is the broker requirements that are currently in place that have not been changed for relatively 13 years. We have got a great group of individuals on this committee discussing the requirements, the experience points, the education, and what have you. And I will tell you, we've put in a lot of work, and it's been a lot of work over the years. One of the biggest things that we have talked about when we talk about broker experience is we talk about the education requirements that are currently in place, and we're analyzing what that will look like if we remove college credit, blanket college credit, or just give blanket ability to use real estate related classes and courses and things of that nature. So we've got a lot on our plate right now that we're looking at. I will tell you that we've gotten a lot of feedback since the bulletin went out, and the feedback has been huge, and I've asked everyone to put in public comment because I believe there was some things left out of the bulletin that were very important, and I really need to discuss that real quick with you. One thing is that the college credit that we're giving, if you have a degree, you can pretty much wipe out the experience or the education requirement that we need to get your broker's license right now if you've got the 4 years in. The other thing is we've discussed the amount of transactions or the experience points that you have, and I believe that that's really important for us to discuss as well, and we're going to be talking about that throughout the rest of the year on broker responsibility. The other thing is that I believe was really left out, and I think that's very important, is all we are looking at is we're not making a recommendation today. All we're doing is researching at this point in time. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that we are looking at the impacts on everyone, including consumers, license holders, current brokers, etc. And with that being said, it's just going to be a continued discussion about those items. The other thing we've discussed in our last meeting was broker associates. Defining broker associates, we've talked about that a few times, and continuing to discuss the lack of transparency there is with broker associates at this point in time. One item that we've mentioned that I've found to be very interesting was if a TREC complaint was filed against a broker associate, the managing broker would not know about it, and it would have to be disclosed from that broker associate, which I find that not to be very transparent, not even a notification, what have you. The other thing is that if there's no IABS provided, if there's no way to get any of that information for a broker associate, a consumer cannot find out who they work for. So I think it's really important for us to keep looking at this issue and trying to find a solution to provide better transparency on broker associates. Last but not least, our future meeting will be on July 18th. A future agenda item would be looking at maybe making a recommendation to the broker lawyer committee about assignability of contracts, maybe putting a checkbox for agents that are doing wholesaling, because we've recently seen some issues on wholesaling and agents not disclosing that, license holders at least. And thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate you guys.
Okay, any questions? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners.
And just a real quick footnote, the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee was Broker Responsibility Working Group for years and years. And last year, with the rule change, we were able to create that with staggered terms, almost like broker lawyer. That way you always have some experience there and some new people coming in. And so I guess this was technically their second meeting as Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee. So they do a lot of work. And like all the committees, they're certainly welcome to public comment and then to watch the meetings. Next will be Chair Lee Warren with the TREC Real Estate Inspector Committee. Good morning.
Again, I'll reiterate, thank you for coming up to DFW. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get my kolaches on the way back from the meeting, which is a little unfortunate, but we'll deal with it. The Inspector Advisory Committee met on April 15th at TREC in Austin. The agenda was pretty light, as much of the work being done is within the subcommittees at this point. The Standards of Practice Subcommittee has begun the long process of reviewing the current standards of practice. This is the start of a cycle that typically lasts a year or two, and all aspects of the SOPs will be under review for any possible modifications and or updates that may need to be made, including a possible form change. I highly encourage inspectors to get involved in the process early. The subcommittee meetings are posted on the TREC website and are open for all to attend. They can even be set up to attend remotely as well. Inspectors are asked to send recommendations to the General Counsel email to be sent to subcommittee for consideration. We'd also like to remind those that submit recommendations that their comments and suggestions will be a matter of public record. The Education Subcommittee has been looking into the possible removal of the real estate inspector license and the addition of the education requirement in order to become an apprentice inspector. The initial thought was that since the real estate inspector license was very underutilized, just like the apprentice, that getting rid of it might reduce the burden on staff to keep policies and procedures for a license type that does not get used often. After multiple discussions with committee members and staff, it was decided to leave the real estate inspector license as is. Staff indicated that what was needed in order to keep the license was reasonably minimal, so there didn't seem to be much reason to jump through hoops to get rid of it. The subcommittee is still looking into having an education requirement in order to obtain an apprentice inspector license. Currently, there is no education requirement in order to be an apprentice inspector. Having a consistent education component to start someone off in the industry might be a good way to ensure that all apprentice inspectors start off with the same knowledge as it relates to the standards of practice and other Texas requirements. There was also discussion regarding what would happen to inspectors that were being sponsored should the sponsoring inspector pass away. As with the broker-salesperson relationship, all sponsorees become inactive in this scenario. Granted, this happens rarely on the inspector side, but instances of this have happened just as they have on the brokerage side. TREC does offer a certain grace period if the situation arises to allow companies to make adjustments to keep their businesses moving, as will be mentioned in a later agenda item. Inspectors that sponsor or that are sponsored are encouraged to ensure that the inspector that sponsors them maintains an active license at all times. If the sponsor does not renew in a timely manner, the sponsored inspectors also become inactive. Inspectors that sponsor other inspectors should have a plan in place should the unthinkable happen to ensure that those in which they sponsor will still be able to perform inspections. We have one item on the agenda for y'all today, but there isn't a whole lot of change. It looks like a big change, but it's basically taking what component was in one place, we're taking it out of one and putting it into another. Sometimes after writing rules, in practice, people love to find loopholes and ways to get around them, so we have to kind of make little corrections and close those loopholes. That's basically what that is, but we support and recommend approval of those changes that are on your agenda. And I'll be welcome to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. We will move to agenda item number 7. That's a report on the Texas Real Estate Broker Lawyer Committee. Let me note, if you signed up for public comment under 12 and you want to talk about the NAR settlement, this would be a great time to make your public comment. And so if you signed up, I've got 3 under agenda item 12. If you want to talk about the NAR settlement, you can certainly discuss it now, so just stand up and I'll recognize you. Good morning, General Counsel Vanessa Burgess.
Good morning. My name is Vanessa Burgess, and I am General Counsel for the Commission. So I do, I do their law stuff. So I'm essentially their in-house counsel. And one of the, I work with all of the advisory committees, which is super fun. I've gotten to know a lot of folks through that process. And I'm here to report today on the Texas Broker Lawyer Committee's meeting. They met on April 12th, and I think this will be of interest to many of you. But as a reminder, this group is made up, it's a 13-member group. There are 6 attorney members that are appointed by the State Bar of Texas. They all have a real estate background, right, generally speaking. And then we've got 6 broker members who are appointed by the commission. And what's neat about that is that you've got lawyers, right, because they're reviewing and revising the TREC contract forms. And so that means that the input on those forms that you all use daily comes from a mix of real estate attorneys, right, because we're looking at contracts, but also that broker perspective, which I always call the real world perspective. I think sometimes with lawyers, I do this routinely. I'm like, well, we should just do this thing. It'll be really easy. And then, everyone here is like, oh, hold on, that doesn't actually work because of X, Y, and Z, and this is how it really works. And you see that exchange, and I think that is a great exchange. That's what really benefits the consumer, that license holder input of the real world side of things, but also that attorney side to make sure that these contracts that you're using on a daily basis do protect the consumer. And so with that, I will talk a little bit about the meeting that happened on April 12th. It was a great meeting. It opened up by discussing the National Association of Realtors proposed settlement agreement related to compensation that may affect members of NAR, Texas Realtors, and local boards of realtors. So I said proposed settlement, which is really important, right? There's nothing final. So while many TREC license holders are members, not all of them are, nor are they required to be, right? And as a reminder, TREC is not a party to the litigation. We take our direction from the Texas legislature as a state regulatory body, and the Texas legislature has given TREC pretty narrow authority over license holder compensation, specifically that compensation is paid to the broker. However, because of possible consumer protection issues and the potential impact of that settlement, the Broker Lawyer Committee considered whether any changes were needed to the TREC contract form, whether any of those forms may be affected by the proposed settlement. So I keep saying may be and proposed, so that you have an idea of where this committee is coming from when it's looking at the contract forms, right? And so you'll see committee member opinions ranged from we should wait and see, it's not time yet, to we've got to do something right now. We're seeing things happening out there. People are putting things in parts of the contracts where they should not go. People don't understand, things like that. And so there was some back and forth on that, which is great. That's what you want to see at the advisory committee level, is a consideration of all sides. So while there were differing opinions on the how, everyone agreed that the proposed settlement merits further discussion. And so after a lot of conversation, what the broker lawyer committee did is it created a subcommittee. It's a compensation subcommittee, and it's composed of broker members, Melissa Haley, who is here, Christy Tatum Jansen, and Lee York, and then we've got two, and the co-chair Ron Walker. So those are the broker members, and then we've got attorneys Brian Watts and S.J. Swanson. And so that group is expected to provide feedback at the next broker lawyer committee meeting in July. So they're, in the interim, they're meeting and walking through possible language changes. They're they're addressing comments that have been received. And so you'll see the work of that group in July. The broker lawyer committee is related to that. They're seeking stakeholder comments on some potential changes to the contract forms related to the proposed settlement. And you can find more information as to the specifics of those changes. There's actually a list of them on the TREC website within the most recent broker lawyer recap article. And I say that because on our website, there's like a ticking banner, and the broker lawyer committee recap is up there. So you can click on that, you can read through the summary, and then there's a spot that lists out some of the possible changes that they're looking at, right? And so they're actively requesting your feedback, the consumer's feedback on those ideas. So there's still an opportunity to provide that feedback, and we've received a lot. It's been great. It's a really engaged, interactive process, which is nice to see. So also in that article, as I mentioned, are some highlights of the meeting. And I will say, finally, don't worry, I'm almost done. That meeting was live streamed, and there is a recording of it available online should members of the public and license holders want to watch it. The broker lawyer committee meetings are long, but they are not boring, right? It could be easily 5-7 hours, but I mean, everyone is engaged the entire time. And so they're very fun. They're fun. I think they're fun to watch. Okay, but the first 45 minutes, I would say, of the last meeting of this April meeting is really good because that's where they're talking about the proposed NAR settlement. That's where, I mean, they really just kick off the meeting talking about that proposed settlement and what its potential impact could be on the industry and the impact on those contract forms, if any. And so it starts with a great summary of the lawsuits and of the settlement that's given by co-chair John George. So if you want a concise summary that's really easy to understand, definitely check out the recording of the meeting. And along those same lines, I know that today we have Lori Levy, who is General Counsel and Vice President of Legal Affairs for Texas Realtors, and she'll be providing an update as part of public comment on this agenda item. I'll let you know that Lori was present at the Broker Lawyer Committee meeting on behalf of Texas Realtors, and she also provides a great summary of all that is going on related to the proposed settlement from that end. So when you tune in, you can hear that summary from John George, and then you can also hear the summary, and you'll see the comments that have been submitted by Texas Realtors, and again, all of the comments that we have received from members of the public and license holders, to which I say thank you. And with that, I believe Lori will be following me as the first public comment on this item.
Any questions? Just to add, I mean, all the public comments are vital, and you can do them online, and if you've ever attended one of the meetings, they go through every comment. They really do. So I don't want you to think your comments are not taken under advisement, because they are.
Yep. And we've seen contract form changes as the direct result of public comment, like since I've been here, right? I mean, we see it happen.
Okay. Thank you very much. Lori Levy, Texas Realtor, General Counsel, speaking on agenda item number 7.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Chairman Kestner and members. I'm very happy to be here in North Texas. I am Lori Levy, General Counsel and Vice President of Legal Affairs for Texas Realtors. We do represent over 150,000 of real estate license holders in Texas. I think over half of them have shown up here today, so we are really excited about the turnout here. And thank you to Vanessa for explaining all of that. I won't go into too much detail about the settlement itself. As she said, that is done in the Broker Lawyer Committee meeting. I did want to also mention, though, and make sure everyone is aware that there is a proposed settlement nationwide that would take effect very soon. In this lawsuit, it was alleged that broker commissions were inflated based on MLS rules requiring MLS participants to unilaterally offer cooperative compensation to buyer brokers. It is still in the proposed stage. The court has set a hearing for November of 2024 to make that settlement final. Having said that, though, there are changes that have already been agreed to by NAR that must take effect before that settlement becomes final. We are looking at a date of August 17th for all of the MLS changes to be implemented. There may be MLSs that do that prior to August 17th, but that is the date by which NAR has set for MLSs to be in compliance. What this means is that unilateral offer of compensation to cooperating brokers will come off of the MLS. They are not prohibited totally. It can still be done outside of the MLS, but it will no longer be a vehicle within the MLS. We anticipate practice changes across the state of Texas in how buyer agents are compensated. It could still be broker to broker, as I mentioned, outside of the MLS. It could be seller to broker directly, and it can also be through the TREC contract through seller concessions. That's where we anticipate the impact to Texas real estate forms. This does necessitate changes to many forms, including our own Texas Realtors forms. We have already begun our work as well on this. We anticipate we will be putting our updated and new forms out on June 24th. We've started saying that publicly, so we're going to hold ourselves to that so that we can have the new forms in place for MLSs that choose to implement the changes early. If our new forms are used under current MLS rules, that's okay too. It's going to work out. We're going to educate on that as well. But I think it's important for you all to know, as the licensing entity, that that is happening. The forms that we are focusing on for updates and additional forms are representation agreements, both the listing agreement and the buyer's representation agreement, as well as our compensation agreements. Right now, we have registration agreements between brokers, and we have one between owner and broker. We are updating those, renaming them to compensation agreements so that it's very transparent and clear what those are. I did present a more detailed update to the Broker Lawyer Committee, as Vanessa said. I do want to thank the members of the Broker Lawyer Committee. I think one of them here. And also thank you to TREC staff for the opportunity today and at that meeting and our continued collaboration on the Texas Real Estate Commission forms that will be used by all license holders. If there's nothing else that we take from the settlement and from the lawsuit itself, is that more transparency for consumers is a good thing, and we are excited to work with the commission on that front. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. Any questions? All right. Thank you. Next up will be Jim Fott, Century 21 Judge Fott, speaking on agenda item 7. Good morning, sir.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I want to say first on a personal note, thank you for letting my sister Jan go back to work. It's a privilege to have her back in the company after 6.5 years with y'all. This is obviously something that we all know is not final until it's final, as far as the NAR settlement. Recognize that. It's been said by legal counsel. By the way, I'm not a lawyer. Let me make that very clear. Don't want to be one. I've been studying this since the lawsuit was filed, as I'm sure many people in this room have been studying it. I go to a lot of national meetings where it's been discussed many, many times by a lot of people a lot smarter than I. But let me say that without a doubt, from my perspective and learning from around the country, I hope that the Real Estate Commission will go to the state of Washington. We mentioned Arello a minute ago. The state of Washington, from my perspective of talking with my fellow brokers around the country, have been dealing with this for a number of years. They have been on the cutting edge of this issue and I think done a pretty good job. Now, obviously, the settlement they are adding to and still amending. But if you haven't studied the state of Washington and what they've done with their forms, I highly recommend you do that. I've seen the proposal from the Broker Lawyer Committee. I've made a comment to Lee York, who was in our company, and made my comments to her. I would say, just on the first set of forms that I saw in the commission side of it, I would ask you to please, and Vanessa, please make all of whatever you're going to put in one form, put it in all the forms, whether it's commercial, farm and ranch, residential, 1 to 4 family, or whatever. The first set that I saw had one paragraph that was for residential, and then they had a different one for farm and ranch. And I don't see, personally, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see any reason why it would be different from one to the other. But that's just my layman's perspective, and make it easier on the brokers and the agents out there filling out contracts and going from one transaction to another. The Real Estate Commission, with all due respect, has not been very timely on some things in the past. In other words, it takes a while for this kind of thing to happen, and I am very concerned about that as a member of the real estate community, that, you know, I recognize that we don't have a final settlement, I get all that, but I sure hope that contingency things will be done, where if there isn't the settlement that's accepted, that, okay, let's move quickly on these things. I know many of you here, many of these folks work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is an important issue for all of our members, all of our people, licensees, and most importantly, the consumers. So please do not let government take over bureaucracy. Let's get this thing done for the benefit of the consumers and our licensees, please. Last but not least, I'm going to take a legal term based upon the last paragraph I just stated. Time is of the essence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We certainly appreciate the comments from both Lori and Jim Fite, and we certainly realize that home ownership and real estate is the backbone of this economy, and we're working with all shareholders to move as quickly as possible. We really are. There are some government things that keep us from doing it instantly, but we're definitely taking times of the essence under note, and I think you can tell that by how just direct Broker Lawyer Committee was at their last meeting as far as getting something done, and then working with the shareholders. Okay, thank y'all. We will go to agenda item number 8, report by executive committee. That is myself. This is found in your material on page 8, and then also on page 10. Just real quick, most of this will come up later in the meeting. We meet once a month. We talk about staffing. We talk about job openings. We talk about hold time. We talk about drop call rates. We talk about everything that we think we need to do to keep the agency running smoothly. Our hold time historically is about a minute and 30 seconds, which, if you remember a few years ago, that is certainly incredible improvement. All emails are returned within 24 hours. A lot of this we will cover later. Also talked about the possibility of the facilities moving TREC and us moving. Talked about broker secession rule that will come up a little bit later. And we talk about having a workshop. And probably 4 years ago, after the commission meeting, we started having various workshops on very specific topics that we thought the commission needed to dig a little deeper in. So we talk about those that are coming up. Again, we also met April 3rd, talked about the Facilities Commission. Again, hold time that month was 38 seconds, fielding about 14,000, 15,000 calls a month. Again, emails returned. we will roll out on broker secession, and talked about, fees. Fees have not been raised since 2014, and license count is certainly up, I think like 40,000, something like that. And so we're always very conscientious of the budget and what we need to do to maintain everything. And so those are the two meetings with the executive. Like I say, that is found in your material. And I'll be glad to answer any questions from anybody. And I will now ask Commissioner Woodruff, agenda item number 9, to give a report on the Budget Committee. Oh, question? Okay. Vanessa, you want to comment on that, or just, we can only disclose what we can disclose? Or is it?
Yes, so the question was, if you were not able to hear it, if we could expand on the conversation about SB 510, is that right? And do you just mean generally talk to everyone about SB 510 and what it's meant and why things have changed on the website? Yeah, and then she said, and also what is being, what the conversation looks like and what TREC may or may not do. And I'm actually going to go up to the podium just because this angle is uncomfortable.
Y'all might have noticed a couple months ago, a lot of information disappeared from our website. And this is Senate Bill 510. And
yep, that's exactly right. So that if you have done a license holder search or checked out the high value data sets since, if I'm remembering, it was 9/1 of last year, some things are missing, right? Which is license holder contact information. And that was not because we were like, you know what, we should take down. No, that's part of, we call it SB 510, Senate Bill 510, which actually made some changes to the Texas Public Information Act that specifically addressed occupational licensing agencies. It also got the state bar. But importantly, what it means is that TREC can no longer release, because this information is now confidential, the personal contact information of license holders and any license holders' emails. And given the industry, we know, we accept your contact information, you give it to us, there's a statute, that's how we communicate with you, right? But we also know that a lot of license holders either office out of their homes, or the information that they have given us has actually been their personal contact information. And because that information is confidential by law, we had to take it all down, right? And I know that has been frustrating for some in terms of being able to look people up and find them. I also know, and I just saw someone clap about this, some people love it, right? And I will tell you, we received a lot of comments from people prior to it coming down saying, can you please take this down? I'm getting all this spam, all these things are happening. And so we understand there's two sides to it, right? And I think that this bill ultimately is addressing the change in statute is addressing the business side of the personal side of contact information, and not being able to access someone at their business, their place of business. But as an agency, we've got to be really careful that we're not releasing information that's confidential by law. So all of that said, that's why you see the removal of that contact information. Now, we did leave up county, so hopefully that helps you in your deduction of like, is this the Vanessa Burgess that is on the other side of this transaction that I'm trying to get a hold of? Well, it says she's in Travis County, and there's only one in Travis County. Now, when there's 3 in Travis County, you're probably going to have to do a little bit more, I would say, Googling. But we're doing that on our side as your regulatory body at the direction of the legislature. But the conversations that are happening that Commissioner Lerner referenced and asked for us to expand on is, well, what can be done about that? We know that there's a need to get a hold of license holders, right? Sometimes they don't respond or call you back. I've heard this. And so what the agency is looking at, and it's likely going to coincide with the rollout of the new licensing database program, but we're trying to look at how we could collect just the business information from folks, and that is going to likely require statutory change, so we're working on that. But essentially, I say we, it's not we. The commission is asking us. But the goal is to have that business contact information out there so that you are able to reach folks, but also to protect that personal information, okay? Because we know that's important, right? In this day and age, you probably don't want all your personal home numbers and all that stuff out there, and I get that. But we are looking at that. I think it's going to require, in our discussions, legislative change, what information we collect, also when we collect information, when we touch the license, which is every 2 years. So it is not, I will just say this, it is not one of those things where I would say, let's just do this, and they're all like, well, it is one of those things, and they're all like, no, you can't do that, it doesn't work that way because of this, this, and this. But we are working on it, and I am really hopeful to have resolution that works both to protect your personal information, but also to provide for that business contact information should that need be there. Did I sum it up okay? Is that right? Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Woodruff, Budget Committee.
Thank you. Okay, so we had a budget meeting on April 23rd, and I think it was actually our second one. We have a series of meetings as we go about developing the 2025 budget in this case. We also look at, about a 2-year, 3-year window, but specifically, the next year is of most, focus. 24 is coming in well along the lines of what we thought it would last year. We took the opportunity to take a couple things. One is fees. We talked about fees. We've been really charging the same thing for quite some time. Over that period of time, as Commissioner Chair Kestner mentioned, we did have several thousand, not the exact number, over the last several years of new licensees, which then entailed adding staff and all the like. At the same time, we've really focused on raising customer service levels, which when you hear the staff reports on hold times and turnaround times and all that, I think certainly has been very successful. Well, it turns out there's a cost to that, and there's some things called inflation and other little things that we're all aware of in our own businesses. So we talked about fees. We also talked about the reserves. We right now operate with a 6-month reserve requirement. We're asking ourselves, do we really need 6 months? Is 3 months enough given the certainty of the revenue streams that we do have? It's not really seasonal. We also talked about the fact that new applications have leveled off, not surprisingly, due to the business environment changing over the last couple of years, presumably, certainly the media environment in terms of talking about, the wonders of being a realtor, or excuse me, licensee in this case. So, we expect that number to flatten, maybe go down some. So that is going to negatively impact revenue at the same time that, of course, our cost, because of salary inflation, service levels, et cetera, will continue to grow. We have a technology project which we anticipate coming online. Like most of these type of things, it'll be a little later than we thought probably, but next year we'll start to see that come online. It's a big dollar item, so we're watching that. And I guess I would say that, overall, it looks like a modest fee increase could be proposed. That hasn't been determined or not. Certainly hasn't come in front of the commission, but could be in order. But that will be modest in any case. So with that, we expect to, I think, complete our work here over the next couple of months and bring a proposed budget to the commission in August and for consideration.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? Just real quick, that number, licensees from 2018 to 20 currently is an increase of about a little over 49,000.
Thank you. So,
The last 6 years.
so 232,000-ish right this minute.
Yeah.
49, so, you know, you can see what kind of impact that had on resources requirements. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Pena, let's talk about the TREC and TLCB Joint Audit Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The audit committee is charged with financial oversight and compliance with regulatory requirements of the commission. Myself and Commissioner Brown and Chair Sarah Oates with the Texas Appraisal Licensing Certification Board are on that committee, and we overall look at compliance, financial audits of the commission to ensure that we are in a good track. From a compliance standpoint, you know, Vanessa talked about the rollout of SB 510. That would be one of them, right? And so we'd pick up to ensure that our compliance with that state regulation is being adhered to in accordance with the laws. And so those are some of the things. We also do the financial statement audits. We also look at efficiency and effectiveness audits as well. We met on April 29th to look at one of the installments of our internal audit plan that we approve annually, and it related to our communications department, which was, there were no findings of substance, and our internal auditors from McConnell Jones will be presenting that in our August commission meeting. And they are currently also working on our IT security vulnerabilities assessment with the TREC, and so there's a lot going on with respect to the internal audit. Overall, nothing of substance to report other than we're doing okay.
Okay, let me add, you're a public member. What do you do in your real life?
I was afraid you'd say that. I'm a certified public accountant in public accounting. So I'm an auditor, actually, for assurance services. So my work is financial statement audits as well as fraud and forensic accounting.
We're very lucky to have him on the commission with that background, especially in the position he's in. So we appreciate what you do. Glad you gave me the opportunity to do that. Okay. Next up, we'll go into staff reports, and we will start with Executive Director Chelsea Buckholz.
Okay. Good morning. I've noticed more clapping here than usual. You can tell we're away from home, and we have visitors here who are very encouraging. So thank you for all that. But if your hands are tired, it's okay. You can rest them. Thank you, Chair Kessner, for leading the charge and getting us out of town. It is great to be in Dallas and great to see so many from the Dallas area with us today. I know the room was set for just over 200. I think we've added about 100 chairs. So well done, Dallas. Well done. Here they go. And I too need to thank our staff for their Herculean efforts to make this roadshow happen. It is certainly easier to host in our own home, right? We know what to expect there. But it is worth the effort to see new faces and to be in new places, so thank you. Thank you also to Pam Cannon for joining us today from Texas A&M's Real Estate Research Center. She, as the new executive director, will appear before the commission about every 6 months, every other meeting. And I look forward to just our continued partnership with the center, with her at the helm. Before I give you a few updates on agency operations, I need to pause. And I need to remember one of our own. Dion Frederick, one of our staff, died earlier this month. She did the recording secretary job for the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. The board is administratively attached to TREC, but we are all one family. And she also did all of the public information requests for our entire agency. She died suddenly on May 7th at the young age of 43. She's a single mother. She leaves behind a daughter who's finishing her junior year of high school. Dion worked for our agency for 16 years. and she had many friends here. And she was reliable and trustworthy. Many of our staff gathered at her memorial service and then a separate funeral this last weekend, and have raised just over $8,000 to support her daughter. So our hearts are heavy today. We ask for just a little bit of grace as we shift gears and we power on just as she would want us to do to get to the business of the day. And so here we go. We mentioned Arello. I will give my just my feedback on Arello. Commissioner Lerner went, as well as Chair Kestner. A few of our staff members went as well, Jennifer Wheeler, Vanessa Burgess, and myself. We were in New Orleans for a real quick 48-hour meeting. The big topic, and there's always one big topic we come back with, and wonder, what is our takeaway going to be? And just as expected, the takeaway this time was really primarily around the NAR settlement. In fact, one of the keynote speakers provided a great overview of kind of where we are in the court cases. There are multiple, and an analysis of what might be to come for us as regulators. It was very helpful in equipping for how we can support the industry. We will continue to find our direction from the appropriate place, which is the Texas legislature. They tell us who to regulate and how. And we will focus on how best to protect the consumer. This is the mission of TREC. But while we also will provide license holders with as much as we possibly can to best equip the industry as a whole. I am committed to a calm, and I'm so sorry, Judge Fight, but slow and measured but responsive approach with room to see where innovation comes with this big change and opportunity. So we will do our best to be responsive and as swift as possible. As you have heard, and I have provided updates at each commission meeting and in between, we are in the middle of a big technology project. We are replacing our back-end database. We call it the RAMP project. We are working with a vendor, Acela, to do this really monumental implementation. And we hope to be complete by the end of this calendar year, but I am here to tell you that it does not look like that will happen. Welcome to big IT projects, right? This is how it works. We do remain on budget, though delayed, as we work to navigate all the complex licensing and education and enforcement processes and to infuse those into this database so that we maximize the automation available for our license holders. There's a tension here between that old quote, perfection is the enemy of good, and our drive to get the most out of what is a multi-million-dollar project that will affect all aspects of our operations for many years to come. So time is important. Highest quality product is also important, and we're managing that tension as best we can. As a leader of this project, my mission is to keep spirits high and motivation strong, and to keep you informed along the way and to deliver the best quality product we can. And I am confident that that will happen. Also, you've discussed, but I will just mention that before you today is just a first look at the budget and the policies that govern that whole budgeting process. So there's no decisions for you today on the actual budget, but we are asking for a few changes to the policies so that we can more fully develop that budget with either the same policies or the changes we've requested. That's the only decision point today. Once we have direction on that front, then we'll bring a more finalized budget to the committee over the next quarter and then to the full commission in August. We also expect, as Commissioner Woodruff mentioned, to bring you some fee changes for your review, possibly at the next meeting, but as soon as we have fully vetted that with our executive leadership and have a solid product for your review. These changes will include a small increase for renewals of sales agents and brokers. We haven't seen that in over 10 years. In fact, the most recent change to that fee was a lowering instead of a raising. We've made many changes over the last few years to increase the way that we support our license holders. And we have counted on our reserve funding and carryover funding to fund those initiatives as directed by our leadership and by the legislature even. And as those funds become depleted as intended, we must make shifts to make sure that we stay financially sound. So that will be before you in the future, but just want that to be out in the world, to warn the world of a potential fee change. It will also include a potential fee decrease for a smaller license type ERWs, which affects maybe nobody in this room, but we'll keep you posted on all of that. I'll leave it at that for the moment, and I'll answer any questions you have on this or anything else.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Up next will be Robert Hood, Director of Customer Relations Division. If you like that 32-second hold time, this is the person that got it there, okay? So good job.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Robert Hood. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Robert Hood, Director of the Customer Relations Division. The Customer Relations Division is the agency's centralized customer service division. The division team members receive and respond to general correspondence from our Texas consumers, our license holders, new applicants, and we receive this communication by telephone, email, and in-person inquiries. Fully staffed, the division has 31 full-time employees. I am pleased to present to you on the status of the contact center. On page 17 in your meeting materials, you'll find the staff reports, and on page 18 will be the beginning of the Customer Relations Division stats through March of 2024. All metrics for the division trend in a very positive direction. The contact center was presented with almost 15,000 calls in March. The hold time for March, as you stated, was 38 seconds. During this time, the contact center was staffed with 21 representatives that were handling phone calls and emails. And as you are aware, we do anticipate some outlier days where our hold time will be over our 2-minute target. But for the month of March, we were able to withstand less than 2 minutes for all the working days in the month. The March comparison of calls between TREC and the board is still consistent, with 94% of our workload being TREC related. On page 19, this is our 13-month comparison of calls presented to the contact center and the hold times for those respective months. From March 2023 to March 2024, the contact center was able to stay below our 2-minute target. And since this past March, we've been able to continue this trend with a success, and 1 minute and 5-second hold time in April, and May is still holding steady at less than 1 minute. Next, on page 20, you'll find the number of emails the contact center handled. In March, 2,883 emails were processed, and we were able to respond to all these emails within 1 business day. And on page 21, this is our fiscal year comparison of the monthly average number of phone calls that were presented each fiscal year with the average hold time. 7 months of data is reflected in FY 2024, and we're averaging about 1 minute hold time and about 15,000 calls every month. This will conclude all the reports for the Customer Relations Division. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Okay, I ask this every month, that respond to the email within 24 hours. That is not the auto response. That is an actual response to that question, correct?
That is correct. That is the actual response to the inquiry, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up will be Jennifer Wheeler, Director of Education Examination Services. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Kestner, Commissioners, and everyone who has joined us here today. It's great to be in Dallas, Las Colinas. I am Jennifer Wheeler. I am the Director of Education and Exams, for the record. I'd like to begin by giving you all a high-level overview of who we are and the work we do in the Education and Exams Division. We are a team of 17 staff who perform various functions within the division. As you all know, sales agents, broker, inspector, and easement and right-of-way agents are required to complete pre-licensing education as well as continuing education once licensed. The Education and Exams Division reviews applications for qualifying and continuing education course providers and the courses themselves to ensure statutory and agency standards are met. Division team members support the agency's mission to protect consumers of real estate services in Texas by ensuring content for qualifying and continuing education courses is both accurate and relevant, and that courses satisfy requirements for adult learning design and delivery methodologies. All sales agents and brokers are also required to pass a licensing exam. The Education Division works in conjunction with Pearson VUE, the agency's currently contracted licensing exam vendor, to annually review and revise licensing exam items and develop new exam questions for the state portion of the exam. We have a curriculum development team who support the development of our non-elective courses and compliance component by which we work collaboratively with education providers to ensure they understand and abide by commission rules for things like administration and advertising. The education team has been very busy, as you'll see in our reports that begin on page 22 of your materials. The first 2 pages of the report reflect the total number of qualifying and continuing education provider applications received and approved through March of this fiscal year. The next page of the report is a 13-month comparison of the volume of applications approved. Page 25 of your materials is a 4-part chart reflecting a 5-year look back, of each major application type, along with the fiscal year-to-date representation for 2024. Page 26 reflects a total volume of applications approved, looking back 5 years with 2024 to date representation in the far right column. Lastly, we've included a chart that reflects the volume of phone calls and emails handled in the Education Division for March of 2024. As an aside, you heard Executive Director Buchholz discuss the implementation of a new database management system. For anyone here who might be an education provider, this project will transition all of our current paper applications to an online format. We expect great efficiencies as a result of this project. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Denise Sample, Director of Licensing.
Just adjust that. Good morning, Chair Kestner and Commissioners, and this full room of people. My name is Denise Sample. I'm the Director of Licensing for TREC, and I'd just like to start out by providing a little bit of an overview of what the Licensing Division does. We consist of 21 employees, and our role is to safeguard the public interest and protect consumers by ensuring that license holders meet the minimum education, experience, exam, and all other license application requirements by reviewing and processing initial, renewal, and any change applications across various license types. So brokers, individual and business entities, business entity registrations, which is our newest type of application that we process, sales agents, inspectors, and easement and right-of-way or ERW registrants. So my reports begin on page 28 of your materials. And it starts with a count fiscal year to date comparison of initial applications received. This data is through March of 2024. And so you'll see on the right-hand side on the top is the broker business entity, broker individual applications. The bottom left is inspector applications and the various ranks broken down, and then sales agents. And so you may notice it's a little bit different. The application report carries over onto the next page to incorporate the newest business entity registrations. So as a reminder, these are business entities that exist for whose sole purpose is to receive compensation on behalf of a license holder. So they're exempt from being licensed as brokers, but they must register with the commission and meet certain requirements. And we did anticipate a lot of interest, and so we've received 1,134 applications as of the end of March of that new business entity registration type. The next page is the renewal activity. This is also broken down by license type. Now this is a little bit different. It's a comparison of fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 24 to date, because all of the licenses and registrations renew on a 2-year cycle. So this way we can compare apples to apples. And we like to key in on the renewal rate, not necessarily the raw numbers. And consistency is what we like to see on those renewal rate numbers. So you'll see them in bold at the bottom of each of the graphs. The next page of your materials, page 31, has the license and registration holder counts. This is a 13-month comparison, and so Commissioner Woodruff commented earlier that we were at about 232,000 license holders. That is for just sales agents and brokers. When you include the business entity registrations and inspectors and easement and right-of-way registrants, we are at 239,000, just under 240,000. So the next page of the materials breaks that down by license type in a graphical way, color-coded. The last report that I'm presenting is application processing time, and this is how many calendar days it takes the licensing team to process an application, and discounts any time it takes an applicant to pass the exam and get fingerprinted and clear the background check process. There was a metric that was set by the commission many years ago that was 14 days, and that's calendar days, to process an application. And you'll see on that very right-hand column, we are well within that metric across all the license application types. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I always have to make this comment. 3.8 days to process the initial salesperson's application. Is that correct?
That's the average.
That's outstanding. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Next up, Michael Malloy, Director of Enforcement. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. I'm Mike Malloy, the Director of Enforcement. In lieu of the audience here, I'm going to talk about my division a bit. We had all the investigation and the enforcement of all the consumer-related complaints of all the licenses that we regulate. Additionally, we review the new applicants and current license holders that have background history issues, for instance, criminal history. And in fiscal year 2023, we opened 6,307 complaints, while we closed 6,670 cases. I have some items from my reports. So moving into my first report on page 34. So comparing our year-to-date data from the same time as last year, broker and sales cases are still up 3.5%. The division's now closed 4.5% more cases than we've opened so far this fiscal year. And overall standing cases have dropped by 32% since last year. Following our typical decline, like I talked about in February with the holidays, we've ramped back up to our average about 500 or so complaints or cases that we open per month. Transitioning to page 35, the case aging. 99% of the cases are within 1 year or younger. And cases within 0 to 6 months have been at 90% or higher. In the next bracket there, 6 to 12 months have been 10% or lower for the past 11 months. Respectively, right now we're at 94% and 6%. The 5 cases that you see there that are going beyond the 12 have all been closed since the date of this meeting, with the exception of one that is a SOA-related case that will be heard today. As of April of this year, The turnaround for case resolution is standing at 97 days. This is a 72-day improvement from this time last year. Turning to the next case reports, subject matter, there hasn't been really any changes on these. The standing ones have been the same way for quite some time. The sales other category, the licensure issues, which is dealing with background history of applicants and standing license holders, and the breach of fiduciary duties category. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? I've got one. I think it's an interesting fact. Probably a couple months ago, we talked about the average time someone had been licensed when they receive a complaint. Do you remember that? How many years it was?
Yeah, the average is about 7 years.
7 years.
Where someone will maybe receive a complaint. But, what we've also discussed before is only less than 1% of our license holders ever get a complaint filed against them. So thankfully, the average, it's an amazing average, to be honest, of people that don't get in trouble and comply with what we need to do.
Okay. And again, the number of complaints resolved within 6 months, I know 94% seems like a high number, but it's 72 days lower than it was a year ago. We budgeted 6 more people for their enforcement division, some investigators, some paralegals, and some attorneys to try to resolve the complaint as quickly as possible. So we hear you out there about improving that, and I think your department's done an incredible job, and staff's done a good job, and this commission's done a good job, giving the funds. So thank you.
We appreciate it. We've used it, yeah. As of about 2 years ago, we were right around 200 days. So, yeah, this has been a big turnaround.
Okay, thank you. Tom Watson, Director of IT. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Tom Watson, Director of Information Technology. As you might expect, information technology is responsible for all hardware infrastructure for the agency, all software systems, applications for the agency, document management activities for the agency, in addition to the data. So we are considered the custodian of all agency data, where we protect it, secure it, and provide access appropriately to the given functions of staff. So it's a little bit about the IT environment. On page 38, this particular page is showing at the very top basically interactions with the website. So what kind of activity are we seeing on the website in terms of consumption of the information or consumption of some of the services? In the middle is a representation of utilization of our online service in relation to submission of initial applications. And then at the bottom is our online service as it relates to the submission of renewals. We continue to see that the renewal submission for online is over 98%, very strong and well utilized. The initial applications is at around 80%, which is also well utilized. You'll see between last fiscal year and this fiscal year about a 2% drop. And that is not, based on what I can tell, representative of a trend. It is that we just had outliers back in 2022 inflating that prior year number. That can be seen then on page 39 a little bit, where I show more of a trending analysis over the last 13 months. And at the top of that particular page is the trend for the submission of initial applications. It's pretty steady, right at roughly the 80% level. So we are seeing consistent utilization, both in initial application submissions through the online services, as well as the renewal submissions on the bottom half of the page, utilizing the online services. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Renata Williams, Chief Financial Officer. Good morning.
All right. Good morning, Chair Kestner and Commissioners. Renata Williams, your Chief Financial Officer, Director of Financial Services Division. Within the Financial Services Division, my team of 13 and I are responsible for accounting for all revenue, expenditures, investment recommendations, paying of invoices, travel, agency procurement, contracting, auditing, financial reporting, asset management, and facilities management. Today, I will be presenting our March 2024 monthly financial report. Starting on page 40 of your materials is the quarterly revenue analysis. We have collected $7.6 million, which is 53.3% of our total revenue projection. We are slightly below our target of 58.3% by the end of March. Although we are below our target, historically we do recognize a slower revenue collection in the fall and winter months, and then we see an increase in the spring and summer months, and of course March was the beginning of our spring revenue collection period. We'll continue to monitor our revenue. On page 41 is our quarterly expenditure analysis. We have spent approximately $10 million, which is 54.3% of our total expenditures. We're slightly below our target of 58.3%, again by the end of 7 months into the fiscal year. On page 42, we have our RAMP budget update. So RAMP is our Regulatory Applications Modernization Project. This is our capital expenditure project. It's a multi-year capital expenditure project. We have $5.5 million in budgeted expenditures for the project, and we recognize $1.2 million of expenditures. We anticipate having expenditures related to this project and the initial contract through August 31st of 2028. On page 43 in your materials is a year-over-year comparison which shows our revenue and expenditures currently in 2024, and what those amounts were in 2023. We should expect to see higher expenditures throughout fiscal year 2024 as we continue with our implementation of RAMP. So that's why you'll see higher expenditures in 24 than you did in 23. Now we go into our investment holdings reports. This depicts our ending balance in each of our portfolios, which is comprised of cash and U.S. Treasury notes. In TREC operating account 3055, our ending balance was $18.3 million, and we had 8.9 in operating reserves, which left $9.3 million of available fund balance for operations. On page 45 is the real estate recovery account 3058. We had $3.9 million as our ending balance, $228,952 reserved for potential payments due within the next 90 days, which left $3.7 million as the ending balance. And then finally on page 46 is account 3059, which is the Real Estate Inspector Recovery Fund. Our ending balance was $454,149.47. There are no potential payments due within the next 90 days. And of course, as a result of legislation changes from the 88th legislative session, Occupations Code Chapter 1102, the Inspector Recovery Fund is repealed, which we know. Any fund remaining in that account will continue to remain in that account in accordance with the provisions of House Bill 1363 until it can be fully liquidated after September 30th of 2028. This concludes the Financial Services Division report. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Pena.
Yes, sir.
On page 42, the expenses incurred today related to the RAMP project, the independent verification and validation services, it's coded as 2001 professional fees and services. Why would that not be under capitalized expenses?
That's how it was initially classified, sir. It's been reclassified. Okay. It's been recoded to $5,000 as a capital expenditure. Excellent. Since it is a part of the project.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
No problem.
Next up will be Summer Mandel, Government and Strategic Communications Director. Good morning, Summer.
Good morning, Chair Kesner and Commissioners. So I'm Summer Mandel, as Chair Kesner said, and I am the Strategic No, I'm the Government and Strategic Communications Director for TREC, as well as the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board, or TALCB. So I'm pleased to present the communications report to you today, hopefully without that. Many of you have been invited to join us today through Facebook. I'm wondering how many of you heard about this through Facebook by show of hands. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And that was the work of our communications specialist, Sierra Pizarro. You see her around with the camera a lot. She spent time inviting individuals who follow us to come here and just let folks know. She had to do it manually, person by person. So thank you for responding to her manual invites. There are also some people who are following along with us online today. Closer, farther? Okay. Anyway, thank you for being here today. Yeah, very finicky. So the outreach to promote today's meeting is just one example of the work that we do in the communications department. And broadly, our mission is to create clear, useful, and trustworthy communications that is for our license holders, for members of the public, and also prospective license holders. We're here to help our colleagues as well with their communications projects. And our primary goal is to make it easy for people like you in the audience today to focus on your business and not wonder what's going on with TREC or how to comply with our rules. I'm really trying to get to see all of y'all, and it's not easy to do. So there's a snapshot in this report that gives you a feel for what we communicate and how. So in addition to social media, we send 4 e-newsletters. There's TREC Advisor, Inspector Insight, Education Connection, and then on the board side, TALCB Bulletin. And anyone can sign up on our website to receive these newsletters, but they are sent with specific audiences in mind. And so you may know Inspector Insight is for our inspectors, Education Connection is our education providers, and then the Advisor and the Bulletin are just more broadly for license holders on updates. As a consumer protection agency, one of our audiences is the public. This spring, we worked with our colleagues in the Enforcement Division, Director Michael Malloy, Roy Minton, and Tony Renneria, to write a press release targeted to Houston media about rental fraud schemes affecting the area. So although we've communicated about these scams more broadly across Texas, including articles on our website, social media, speaking events, even our course books, we wanted to target Houston for the media because it has the highest number and most egregious of cases. And so the report you see here shows the earned media from that press release, which includes the Houston Chronicle and BizNow Houston, among others. We also reached a fairly new audience for us, and that's Spanish speakers. So Univision interviewed Tony Renneria in Spanish, good Lord, and Telemundo put our information out to their audience as well. We're grateful for the time our subject matter experts in the Enforcement Division gave to help us out with this and sharing tips and being interviewed. A forthcoming campaign you'll see is celebrating TREC's 75th anniversary, which is this fall. You may have already seen a teaser video that Sierra created. There are a few more to come, though, that will highlight some longtime staff as well as some folks from the past and some cool memorabilia from the agency's history. So our communications department is small. It's just Sierra and I, but we're mighty, and we're here to serve the agency, its license holders, and consumers throughout our work. So this concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Any questions, commissioners? Okay.
All right,
Thank you very much. Next will be agenda item number 12. This is public comment. I've got 3 people for public comment. If you want to run back and get signed up, we will certainly let you comment. I would like to limit each comment to 3 minutes, and we will start with Cole Godinger with Remax DFW Associates. Cole? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. My main concern, I won't take 3 minutes, allergy season, thank you, is the fact of wholesaling, okay? It has become very prevalent here in Texas. Probably 20% of the states in the U.S. have already started rules to stop this. Would like the commission to take this into effect and kind of know what y'all are planning to do or not planning to do. What I know that showing the public what's going on, open, being transparent, it seems that wholesaling is hiding behind the contracts. So we need to make sure that our contracts are showing that with TREC. I know it's separate with TAR and all that with the fiduciary duties, but TREC needs to maybe tighten that up a little more. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next up will be Mark Wolf, Remax DFW Associates. Mark.
Good morning.
Morning.
I want to address one question specifically, but then just make some comments too. The Zillow home tour agreement that our agents are being hit with as an agreement part of this settlement situation. August 17th is going to be here before we know it, and I appreciate Texas deliberation. They always do. We have some of the best forms in the nation. We probably have one of the best buyer rep agreements in the nation. Yet it appears to me that our forms may not be ready by the time August 17th comes and there's a change in MLS. And with that, vendors are out there hitting us up with forms. This Zillow home tour agreement, I'd like to know if it's even going to be legal in Texas. It's a 7-day look and see. You may give out the IBS form, but you don't enter into a buyer rep agreement until day 8th. And I know it meets the NAR guidelines. Our franchise attorney said it does, but does it meet Texas guidelines when it comes to agency? And this look and see to look at homes, you don't really represent the buyer, you don't represent the seller, you're just out there showing the homes, and then you come into a representation agreement. Is that going to be possible in Texas? Does that meet our requirements? It meets the NAR requirements, but does it meet ours? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Bud Roselle, Good Home Inspections. Percent. All right. Thank you. We will now move to agenda item 13. And I will announce agenda item 13 is consideration and possible action regarding proposal for the decision in the matter of the SOA docket number 32923238182. REC TREC versus Craig Mills. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the respondent? Anyone to speak for Craig Mills? Okay. Seeing none, I will now ask Mr. Malloy, Director of Enforcement, to present.
Good morning again. Michael Malloy, Director of Enforcement. So I'll briefly talk about this case. So the case involves a complaint filed by Ms. Bird, who was the respondent's client. Ms. Bird and the respondent signed a buyer's representation agreement on December 28, 2021, which was retroactively effective of November 1st, 2021. And it went until May 21st, 2022, and then it was then extended until August 22nd, 2022. Ms. Bird and her allegations in the complaint alleged that the respondent asked her to pay him $10,000 for home buying services. On November 8th, the respondent accepted a $10,000 cashier's check made out to him, which he cashed the same day. However, this trust money was not deposited in a broker trust account or even turned over to his sponsoring broker at that time. But the respondent testified, alleged that he gave the cash to a third party. But Ms. Bird argued and testified too that If she intended to give $10,000 to a third party, that she would have made the check payable to them directly and not to the respondent. So respondent, regarding the claim, that he provided the $10,000 to the third party, I should note that there was no additional evidence outside of his testimony provided at the hearing. No emails, no text messages. He had lots of other text messages, but there's nothing that dealt with handing over this large amount of money to a unknown third person. There was, there's a person in there, Miss Lewis, that's talked about, but that's refuted, and there's no evidence that this money was even handed over to this person, or even for the purpose of. Moreover, the nature of home buying services was clearly a questionable type of term, and Ms. Bird understood that the $10,000 was for home purchase. The respondent initially told the commissions, part of the investigation, which should be noted, that he received this check in the spring of 2021, but later acknowledged that he received it on the, right around the November 8th date, which I think calls into question his honesty in regards to his testimony, considering it's inconsistent with what the evidence showed in our case. The judge determined that the commission met its burden of proof that the $10,000 was trust money. Additionally, the respondent's broker testified that they're not allowed to accept trust money, let alone hold it in any kind of account. Thus, his sponsorship was terminated, and the administrative law judge found that the respondent's actions were unreasonable and imprudent, leading to a conclusion that there was at least negligence or incompetence in performing its fiduciary responsibilities. So as a fiduciary, we all know that you have special obligations. In this case, you need to be scrupulous, meticulous, and competent in performing them. In this case, the respondent failed on all these aspects, in my opinion. The evidence shows, I think, not even negligence, but gross incompetence. As the $10,000 in trust money was mishandled, further, the only evidence that we have points to one person who held it and likely retained the money, and that person is the respondent. Staff recommended initially revocation and administrative penalty of $13,000, while the judge alternatively recommended some CE and $3,000 administrative penalty. The commission has had other similar types of cases, and in those cases, the dollar amount was a lot less, and a significant factor was the complaining party that didn't have the money was returned to them, so they were made whole. So in those cases, at least mitigated the severity of the offense, where in this case there's no return of the money, it's just poof, it's gone. So considering these factors, staff recommends adoption of the proposal for decision, but modification of the ALJ's recommended punishment, and we recommend still a revocation and administrative penalty in the range of $5,000, but not to exceed $8,000. I was the expert witness, so I'll be the one answering questions today.
Commissioners, questions, let me remind you that questions need to be limited to what's in the record. And Commissioner Pena.
Michael, real quick, did Ms. Lewis ever meet with Ms. Bird regarding the services to be provided?
She testified no. They had some sort of outside transaction dealing with some sort of truck, I believe, or semi-truck, but nothing outside of that.
And so Ms. Bird actually cut a certified check to Mr. Mills for $10,000 for home buying services?
Yes, yes.
Which, according to him, were for credit repair services.
That was his claim, and she refuted that in her testimony.
So he actually took that money and cashed it, and according to his testimony, delivered it to Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, and there is no evidence that Ms. Lewis actually ever received that money?
You would think even if you're steward of the money, but this is not a very good, not being a good steward of anything, handling this stuff, you would have like text messages or emails or phone logs. There's nothing. He testified that the Ms. Lewis, whomever she is, she's since passed away. So we don't really know of anything of the existence of his, or at least the validity of his testimony.
Anybody? I've got one question. Okay, cashier's check was given to the respondent. He cashed it. That's in the record. No documentation, even though there's all these texts back and forth about every other part of that transaction. There's nothing about the $10,000 being meet me at Denny's or here it is or whatever. No documentation whatsoever that that money went anywhere except to
just
the
Mr.
respondent.
Mills, yes.
Any other questions? And so, go ahead.
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. Just for the members of the public, this is a learning moment for everybody. Don't accept a check in your name, and particularly cash it. That's something that just the optics are not very good from an accounting standpoint. All checks should be made payable to your business, and so certainly a teaching moment. It's unfortunate that it takes a situation like this for somebody to get in trouble very, very quickly. So just take that as something to learn from the mistakes of others, and just don't do that.
Commissioner Russell.
So the only thing we have is his word that he was going to give the check to someone else. We have no proof, nothing.
That's correct. It was just based on his testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Not only is it wise from the CPA aspect, it's also wise from the brokerage aspect not to take a check in your name, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Normally we go into executive session. I am going to backtrack to agenda item number 12. We had a Russ Booker, Arbrook Realty. Roz, I'm sorry.
Hello, Chairman Kestner.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you guys for bringing this meeting to Texas. I am Roz Booker, Principal Broker, CEO of Arbrook Realty. I'm an independent broker. I also represent as First Vice President of Women's Council, Collin County, and Second Vice President as for NARAB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers. In relationship to the lawsuits that are happening and the possibility of those low to moderate income earners who may be barely qualified, what considerations are being made that those particular buyers who may be squeezed out of the market by not having the funds to pay for buyers' representation, how will that lead to an epidemic that we tried to solve back in the 80s regarding those buyers feeling forced to go with the listing agent's representation? So that is a concern that a certain industry, minority buyers will be impacted by this, and we just want some answers and resolutions as to how we can continue to bridge the gap in home ownership for minority buyers relative to the lawsuit.
Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 14, we'll go into executive session to discuss pending litigation, obtain legal counsel on the agenda items pursuant to Texas Government Code. I figure we'll be in executive session for approximately 1 hour. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. So we'll go into executive for 1 hour. We will come back out of executive and we will get back into the contested case and try to get some type of resolution. And legal is looking at me again.
I just wanted to clarify that you're doing that pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, and this is how annoying I can be. But yes, that's the specific
says, read
provision.
this language exactly.
I do put that in there.
I show 1206, so 1210, 110. Okay, we will call the meeting back to order at 1:10 p.m. We will go back to agenda item number 13A. in consideration of possible action regarding proposal for decision in the matter of SOA docket number 329-2323182. REC TREC versus Craig Mills, and Mr. Malloy with enforcement, if you would come up. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Malloy before the chair entertains any motions? Any questions?
Mr. Malloy, just real quick, was there any evidence that any services were provided for that money?
No.
None at all. Not in the testimony with the.
He did his brokerage activity related services. If that's what you're meaning. Be like alternatively, like whomever this third person was. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I guess did Ms. Bird indicate that she had received anything for that money?
No. She believed it was for the purpose of buying a house.
So in her mind, it was a prepayment for representation of buying a home.
Yes, I think more akin to what she testified to.
Any other questions? Chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based on Mr. Mills' negligence and mishandling of the $10,000 of trust money, I move to revoke his license and assess a $3,000 administrative penalty.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to revoke the license and assess a $3,000 penalty. Further discussion on that?
Mr. Malloy, how long will his license be revoked?
So upon the date of revocation, when it becomes effective, he would not be allowed to reapply for 2 years. But we always look at someone's background history, so we would have to take that in consideration, the revocation, if he ever did choose to reapply.
Could you make it a longer term?
I could not. Statutorily, it's 2 years.
Okay. Would he have to pay the $3,000 before he could?
Yes, you have to make any kind of past administrative penalties or fees to the commission whole before you would be able to apply for a license.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add that the implications with respect to this money that was taken from Ms. Bird is, there's some serious implications here with respect to fiduciary duty and what's owed to her, right? And I believe the realtor community has a certain amount of sanctity with respect to taking the people's money to ensure that it ends up where it's supposed to. And this is very a touchy subject. It deals with protecting the public and their funds, and as fiduciary agents of that. And so this is extremely, extremely sensitive and important. I think the commission feels very strong that we take this seriously. And so in order to protect the public, we will take measures to do that.
Yes. I would also like to point out that revocation, as alluded to, is the most serious action, and we don't do that often. And the reason for this is it reflects the severity of what the infraction is, and no remorse, no restitution. None of these things seem to be apparent, which in other cases they are, but that warrants the severity of the action and the financial, because at the end of the day, it is the trust that the public puts in with realtors, and this has been broken, and that needs to be reflected in the punishment.
I agree. The ALJ judge, they found the fact that he received the money. Fact is, that was not in dispute. The big dispute is he cashed the check. That's not in dispute. The big dispute is whether he gave it to Ms. Lewis, and there's absolutely no documentation. And I think the 232,000 licensees that we supervise and regulate, the public puts so much trust in what we do as a real estate licensee, and this is a prime example of taking that trust and just totally failing any type of fiduciary, any type of accounting, just anything, and it sends a really bad message that if there's not a revocation, that you can take trust that you have, that somebody has in you, and be predatory. And so I would certainly speak in favor of the motion. I'll add the fact that no matter what, they can come back in 2 years and apply for a license, no matter what. Well, I will not be here in 2 years, but I know some of y'all will be, okay? So this is the type that I don't think needs a license in the state of Texas, so I'll speak in favor of the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, agenda item 15, discussion possible action to authorize settlement of the recovery fund claims or take other action. Praline Frazier versus Tanya Frazier and Jocelyn Frazier. Presenting will be Deputy Counsel Abby Lee.
Good afternoon, Deputy General Counsel Abby Lee for the record. Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So as the Chair stated, I'm presenting agenda item 15, which is discussion and possible action to authorize settlement of recovery fund claims or take other action in RF 23004, Praline Frazier versus Tanessa Frazier and Jocelyn Frazier. For those of you not familiar, the Recovery Fund is frequently called the Fund of Last Resort. It is a fund that consumers can apply for once they've received a final judgment in a lawsuit. If actual damage was caused by a license holder, they can apply for reimbursement. So what you're seeing here today is part of that process. So the staff recommendation in this case is to authorize a settlement payment of $47,500 plus 8% in post-judgment interest.
Okay. Entertain them. Motion, yes.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
Second. All right, a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation for the payment. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item number 16, I believe you're handling that also, correct?
I am. So the rest of these agenda items are that I'll be taking have to do with proposed rulemaking. So if the commission votes to approve these next set of items for proposal, what that means is they will be formally published, and then the public can then submit public comment. Tell us what you think about the proposed changes before they are potentially adopted at the August meeting. So these are just up for proposal right now. So agenda item 16 is discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 TAC 533.8, motion for rehearing. So this proposed amendment is made as a result of the Commission's quadrennial rule review. So if you recall, we talked about this last time. The Commission is by law required every 4 years to perform, I sort of refer to it as a spring cleaning of rules, to look at each of our rules to determine if they should be revised or repealed. And so we opened up at our last meeting in February, we opened up 2 chapters, chapter 533 and 534. We accepted public comment to the extent there were any. We did not have any at this time. But staff in our review of those rules found a couple of issues that we'd like to clarify or correct in the rules. So agenda item 16 and 17 are those items. So agenda item 16, as I said, is the result of the quadrennial rule review, and the amendment is proposed to correct a typo in subsection H. The staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit the proposed amendments to 22 TAC 533.8 as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
I move the Commission approve staff's recommendation.
Have a motion to approve staff recommendation with a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You abstain? Motion carries. Agenda item number 17.
Agenda item 17 is discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 TAC 534.4, historically underutilized businesses program, and 534.7, vendor protest procedures. Again, these proposed amendments are made as a result of the quadrennial rule review. The amendments are proposed to correct references to applicable regulations, other regulations in the Texas Administrative Code. Therefore, the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit the proposed amendments to 22 TAC Chapter 534 as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
I move that commission approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Motion to approve staff recommendation, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining, motion carries. Agenda item number 18.
Agenda item 18 is discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 TAC 535.64, content requirements for qualifying education courses. You heard a bit about this earlier with Chair Stedham of ESAC, where he described these proposals. But the amendments are proposed to reflect changes to the course approval forms incorporated by reference in subsections A1 through 3 of this rule. Those are related to the Principles of Real Estate 1, Principles of Real Estate 2, and the Law of Agency courses. These course approval form revisions were recommended by ESAC, and these changes reorder and remove content from the course approval forms to ensure relevancy and the course objectives are being met. The staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit the proposed amendments to 22 TAC 535.64 and the forms adopted by reference as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
I move the commission approve staff's recommendation.
Motion made by Commissioner Lerner.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Woodruff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item 19.
So agenda item 19 is discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 TAC 535.121, inactive sales agent license, 535.123, inactive broker status, and new 535.124, death of a designated broker. I'm going to present this formally, and then I'm actually going to hand it over to our Director of Licensing, Denise Sample, to provide a little bit more information about the process and the practical implications. But the changes up for proposal today are a result of one of the Commission's 2024 initiatives regarding broker succession. Under the proposed amendments, a new rule, the business entity and any sponsored sales agents will be given a safe harbor or grace period of 14 days from the designated broker's death before their license inactivate. This would provide the entity with time to name a new designated broker that satisfies these requirements prior to going inactive. Additionally, these changes also remove the word immediately from certain places in both 535.121 and 535.123 to be more consistent with our actual process. So I'm going to turn it over now to Denise Sample, our Director of Licensing.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Denise Sample, Director of Licensing for the record. So currently, when a designated broker dies, and under this proposed process as well, when a designated broker for a business entity dies, the business entity license becomes inactive, as does any sponsored sales agent's license. This means that neither the entity nor the sales agent will be able to perform any real estate services that require a license, even if in the middle of a transaction. To return to active status, the business entity needs to designate a new broker who must hold an active license in good standing with the Commission and have managing authority in the business entity. So they serve as a corporate officer, an LLC manager, or an LLC member with managing authority, or a general partner. Even if the entity has a succession plan in place, this transition period can take time for the supporting documents to be submitted to licensing staff to review them and ensure that all of those requirements are being met. Once the business entity license is active, the agents can be added back to the entity's broker license using the online relationship management tool. As soon as licensing is made aware of this type of situation, staff works with the prospective new designated broker of that business entity to ensure expedited processing of the documents. and for that change of designated broker to take place as quickly as possible. We provide a direct point of contact and put those documents at the top of the stack or at the front of the line, so to speak, to make sure that those get processed as expeditiously as possible.
Any questions on any of that?
Any questions, or would entertain a motion, then discussion, possibly? Any questions? Commissioner Lerner, questions?
Yes. Denise.
Mr. Pena.
Excuse me. A 14 grace period, is that consistent with your normal practice of what happens today, actually?
Prior to the proposal of this rule, the general practice was to allow 10 days. 10 days from when we are notified of the death of a designated broker to not take any action on the sponsored licenses. And so this codifies a slightly longer grace period.
So is the 14 days sufficient to wrap it up?
Yes, typically just normal processing time for a routine change of designated broker request that's received for a business entity. We process those within about 3 to 5 business days.
Other questions or comments? This has come to our attention over the last probably 3 or 4 years, where business entities, the designated broker has passed away, and TREC has always had the ability to, I'm going to use the word, slow play, work with them, but there was nothing in the rule that basically said you've got so many days to get someone to take it over. And I know at the executive level, this was a big deal because there's brokers with lots of agents and a great succession plan, but it takes time. And I think this gives the business entity a little comfort knowing that they're going to have time to get it done. And that not only protects the business entity, it protects the consumer. And so, kudos.
It's a good rule.
But we don't have a motion yet, so.
I can tell you the staff recommendation.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the commission to submit the proposed amendments and new rule to 22 TAC Chapter 535 as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Motion made by
Second.
Commissioner Brown, second Commissioner Pena. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item number 20.
So this is our last proposed rule. It's discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 TAC 535.209, examinations, 535.213, qualifying real estate inspector instructors and courses, and 535.214, education and experience requirements for a license. You heard a little bit about this from Chair Warren of the Inspector Committee. The amendments, which primarily rearrange existing requirements, are being proposed to clarify that the Texas practicum is an experience required, and it's categorized by statute as field work and is separate and apart from an educational course. Now, education providers will still be able to offer the Texas practicum, but will no longer need to submit a course application for the Texas practicum or issue course completion certificates to students. Instead, students will submit the credit request form to the agency to obtain credit. The Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee recommended these amendments, and therefore the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit the proposed amendments to 22 TAC Chapter 535 as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
We entertain a motion.
I move to accept the staff recommendation.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodruff, second by Commissioner Pena. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you. Before you leave, all these rules are proposed. They will be published for comment.
Correct.
Anybody can comment. Then they will come back before the commission in August.
Correct.
For formal adoption.
Right.
So these are proposed. We'll welcome your comment.
We do, yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Agenda item 21. Wait, do we have? New Business Executive Director Chelsea Buckholz.
Hello again.
Good afternoon.
We have received an assignment letter from the Texas Facilities Commission that would mean moving to new office space, but not until fiscal year 2028. This decision is before you today to determine whether the agency should accept that assignment of new space and enter into a memorandum of understanding to move forward with these plans to relocate. This new space would be in state-owned property that's currently under construction at Lavaca and 15th Street, which is just a few blocks from our current office space in Austin. It would allow us to downsize our footprint some and to save rental costs and to have a more modern space that more accurately reflects the way we currently work. The Texas Facilities Commission has received appropriations and will continue to do so to cover moving expenses and certain fixed furnishings associated with this move for us. They have also quoted us a lease amount on a square footage basis that it turns out to be a reduction in rent, both in per square foot and square footage, total square footage, which is what we're looking for. Now, this is several years away, and it's outside of our current budget projections of 3 years. But it's something that I want to bring before you today to ensure that we are all in agreement on a path forward. Now, even though Texas Facilities Commission will cover the cost of this move, I am not naive enough to think that we will not incur some costs, but I think that they will be minimal given what TFC has been appropriated to cover. I have received this question a couple of times, so I wanted to make sure you know that it does appear that the building will have meeting space that can accommodate meetings just like this. But if it's not a big enough space, there is a conference center at simply 1 block away in the Barbara Jordan Conference Center is what they call it. So we'll have a few options for that. Next steps include entering into this memorandum of understanding for purposes of completing this construction phase. We currently have that MOU under review right now and have held that until we receive a decision from you. Our current lease expires at the end of 2026, so we'll have about a year, maybe more, depending on construction timeline, that we will need to make other plans. But we can extend our current lease by 1 year or however long we need in order to close that gap. I can't determine a downside for this move. It will allow us to be more modern. It will also allow us to save some money. But I want to make sure that each of you agree. So as such, I am seeking today authority to enter into this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the Texas Facilities Commission as presented.
Questions?
I do have questions. How many employees do we have currently?
We hover around 160, and that's inclusive of the board staff.
Okay, and then how many employees will this new space handle at one time?
We will be able to accommodate 160 people in chairs, but not in their own office or cubicle space all at one time. And that's by design, and that's because we are operating in a hybrid environment. But what that means is that we will be able to gather on occasions where we need to be in the same place for town hall meetings and similar. And we will be able to work together, but it will be utilizing conference space and other areas.
And since this is 2028 and things could change again, because just as we heard with the Texas Real Estate Center that people are going back to the workspace, what happens if that happens and we don't have enough space?
Well, we currently have I'm currently the one that gets to make that decision on where people work. And we have watched the legislature closely to see if they would make any sort of directive towards that. And they have not, and they don't seem to indicate that they will. If our circumstances change, there is some buffer room built into that because of it's a long time frame. But if that were the case, then we can always the circumstances in state agencies always are kind of evolving. And so we would simply go back to Texas Facilities Commission and negotiate additional space.
And then, have they given you the specs for what they're giving you for the flooring, the furnishings, whatever? Do we know if it's stuff that's going to work or if we're going to have to pay more?
We will be able to be a part of that process, but those decisions haven't yet been made.
So what will be on the MOU? Well, what are the contents of the MOU?
You have those in your materials that were sent in, under separate cover, but the most of it is around who pays what.
And the downsize in space, I mean, we actually have and will have the opportunity to design so we can optimize the space. I mean, it's smaller space, but we can also optimize it, which will
Correct.
certainly help, you know, for all the departments to be in one part or whatever. So we will have that opportunity to design and optimize the space.
That's exactly right.
And the MOU talks about, I mean, they pay for the move, we get everything ready for the move. I mean, it's very specific on who pays for what as far as the move. But and the rate is set by the state. I mean, it's smaller space. We get a chance to design it. They're going to handle a lot of the move, not all the move. I just think it's in the best interest of the agency to let her enter in this MOU and look at the new space, especially if it's going to save dollars, save money.
Yes, the economics, I think, speak to the rationale. And in addition to the fact that if you don't do something, then what happens, which is you're going to have to spend money renewing the space. If you've ever been up there, it's certainly not updated by any means. So this is a proposal that, you know, the economics are good, the timing's good, you know, I would support it.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Russell.
How long have we been in the current space?
Oh, that's such a good question. Who knows?
Approximately.
2011.
Since
2011. Did we have the opportunity to design that for our needs at that time?
The answer is yes, yes. I was not here, but these guys were.
Right. Okay, I was just wondering, sometimes when you move into a space, if you are not allowed to design it specifically, you have a lot of wasted space. So it sounds like you'll be able to tailor this.
We will. We will be able to decide, and some of this feedback we've already provided them. How many offices do we need? How many cubicles do we need? How do we want those grouped? Do we want them to high walls? Do we want low walls? We've gone and toured different office spaces to get some ideas on the type of feedback we'd like to see. And, you know, we are the state. I don't think that it's going to be like walking into Google. But I do think we will be able to make some innovative decisions to accommodate the hybrid work environment and to allow our employees to come into a space that feels fresh and modern.
And we've been doing the hybrid for about, 3 years now?
Since the beginning, I've been here a little over 5 years, and there's always been some work from home, maybe a day a week, something like that, which positioned us well once COVID hit, March of 2020, to go, of course, entirely remote. And now we have settled into a hybrid environment where we have some presence in the office every day, and we have some people working from home every day.
All right, so I agree that I think that this is a smart thing to at least, let's have the conversation. My real question is, and if the answer is I don't know yet because it's 4 years from now, that's okay too. From us serving our stakeholders, what does downtime look for something like this? For the call center, for things like that?
That's a great question, and I will make sure I have an answer to that. It should not be exceptional. For one, we don't do our own moving. We need to have everything set to move, and then someone else moves. So, and we are set up to work entirely remote. So it might be that we office in our old space on a Friday and we show up to our new space on a Monday. That sounds a little perfect. But I don't think it will be that far off of that in terms of accommodating license.
As realtors, we know that never works out the way you plan. Right?
I'm a glass half full kind of person, but we'll make some contingency plans.
Technology-wise, what will that be like? I mean, we're already with ramp, we see delays now, and then if we're in another few years.
It shouldn't make any difference. We hope to be completely in the cloud by then. So, and we will have, I'm not going to pretend to speak in a very educated manner on this, but some of the common space in this new building that will be established is for all the IT infrastructure. So that will be in a common space environment for all of the state agencies there. So that, like server rooms, things like that. I hope to not need very much of that because we will be in the cloud, but we will have a whole lot more information as time goes on.
Chelsea, is there a parking garage, a TFC parking garage nearby, or?
It will be underground parking. We will remain on the Capitol complex. So what you currently see at the Capitol complex, we will not be. We'll basically be on the other side of our current parking garage. But there will be underground parking that can be accessed from our building. So there will be parking for all.
And the Facilities Commission initiated this. They
Correct.
sent us, said, hey, we've got this space, you need to look at it. And so they initiated it, and
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve staff's recommendation.
I have a motion by Commissioner Brown to approve, second by Commissioner Pena. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to go back to agenda item number 12 agenda item number 7 for a public comment. Gerald Sankini with Monument Realty, and I probably butchered that name, but I'll apologize. All right, and thank you for joining us, and we have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you for coming to town. Welcome. And my general comment is regarding NAR, the lawsuit. If it could be optional for agents and brokers to be part of NAR. As my understanding it is now, we are all required to be part of it. The way I feel about it is that I'm part of an association that is supposed to help me out, and they didn't when I needed them. They were not there for me. They decided to settle a lawsuit that I believe it shouldn't have been settled, instead of fighting for everybody, every single one of the agents out there. And if I don't have to be part of them, I don't want to be. That will be my only comment.
Okay, all right. Thank you. We regulate about 232,000 licensees in the state of Texas. That includes business entities that don't breathe, and the rest of them breathe. We are, mic drop, okay, yeah. Timing was off a little bit, Tony. You need to work on that. You are a licensee in the state of Texas. We regulate licensees. You are not required to join any association. You're required to pass the test, maintain the CE, and not commit, misrepresentation and stay within the License Act. And so, yeah. Okay. All right. Agenda item number 22. Chief Financial Officer Renata Williams on the 2025 budget.
Good afternoon, Chair. This is discussion and possible action regarding the FY 2025 Budget and Financial Administration Policy and the FY 2025 Investment Policy. Those materials were sent to you guys under separate cover, and the Budget and Financial Administration Policy has been updated to correct any grammatical errors, update language to align with current practices regarding our salary guides and job classifications. In addition, the operations and contingency reserve was decreased from 6 months to 3 months. The investment policy was also updated to correct grammatical errors, update language to reflect the decrease in the operations and contingency reserve from 6 months to 3 months. In addition, You guys were also sent the FY 2025 first draft of the budget, and that was included in your separate materials as supporting documentation for these changes to the policy. So within the budget document, you're going to see two drafts. One draft that depicts our current financial situation without consideration of a reduction of the operating reserves, and the other includes the effect of a decrease in our operations reserve. Essentially, it gives us a little longer run rate before additional decisions need to be made regarding the budget. Staff will continue to meet with the Budget Committee over the summer to refine the FY 2025 budget that will be presented to the full commission for adoption in August, but we wanted to be able to bring you this update regarding the budget to the full commission today. No decision is needed at this time regarding this first draft of the budget. As mentioned, we're going to continue to work with the Budget Committee over the summer to refine this and present you a better version, a final version at the August meeting. However, the staff recommendation for today is that the commission approve the changes to the policy as presented.
Move that the commission approve staff's recommendation.
Motion made by Commissioner Russell.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Woodruff. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you. We will now go to agenda item 23, discussion of possible regarding the 2025-2029 strategic plan. Deputy Executive Director Tony Slagle. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon, Chair Kestner and Commissioners. For the record, Tony Slagle, Deputy Executive Director. I am speaking on agenda item 23, discussion of possible action regarding the FY 2025-2029 strategic plan. That draft was sent to you under separate cover, and it should be opened as a separate PDF on your tablet if you want to access it. The plan is required to be produced every even number year prior to the upcoming legislative session. This document is very similar to the previous plans in that, per the instructions from the governor's office, it's required to be organized in a specific way, including templates that we're required to use and to follow. It's made up of agency's mission, philosophy, and motto, the operational goals and action plan, redundancies and impediments, and then there's several supplemental schedules involved in it as well. Before I continue, I do want to say thank you to staff. This was a group effort to get this document together. There was a lot of work put into it by the division directors, the executive director, the general counsels, and in particular Summer Mandel. Summer worked diligently to make sure this document was clear and as concise as possible, so I thank all of them for that. For most agencies, this document is directly tied to their budget and the appropriations process. As an SDSI agency, we're not part of that appropriations process. However, we are still required to submit the plan to statewide leadership, and it's due on June 1st. The document applies to both the commission and to the appraiser board, and while there are parts that are specific to each, a good deal of the document does apply to both. I did want to point out a few items for your consideration. Throughout the plan, the forthcoming transition to a new database is used to speak to future process efficiencies and the ways in which the agency can further improve service to the agency stakeholders. As in the past, the agency uses the redundancy and impediments section of the plan, pages 18 through 20, to address possible legislative initiatives. 2 of the 4 items under that section address legislative initiatives of the Commission. Both have already been spoken about today. The first is amending the TREC statute to possibly grant the Commission rulemaking authority over education requirements for sales agents in the same way it did for brokers last session. And the second addresses SB 510, the possibility of amending TREC statute to clarify that the agency can in fact collect information related to a license holder's business, such as business address and phone number. Of the other 2 items on the redundancies and impediments section, one is TALCB specific, and the other is a non-legislative initiative related to the agency's goal to go 100% paperless. I'm happy to pause right now and answer any questions about that before I continue if anybody has any. Otherwise, I will continue.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay. Finally, I wanted to bring to your attention some new performance measures. The first is on the bottom of page 39 of the plan. This is really an amended version of a current measure that required the Commission to calculate the number of jurisdictional complaints it receives. Because TREC enforcement spends time and resources on all complaints, regardless of whether or not they're jurisdictional, the measure has been amended to report the number of all complaints received. This also reflects the current practice of the Enforcement Division and how they report complaint data. The next three are new measures located on pages 43 through 44 of the document and relate to the work the Communications Department is doing. And they focus on the open rate of the newsletter, the number of agency social media followers, and the agency's social media and engagement rate. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the entire document before I talk about a recommended motion.
Questions?
Okay. As mentioned earlier, because the strategic plan applies to the entire agency, the plan needs to be finalized and approved by both the board and TREC prior to the submission of the plan on June 1st. TALCB met on May 10th and approved the plan as drafted with no amendments. Since it doesn't appear that you have any changes, and I don't know if you do, I'm assuming you don't before I go on. Is that correct? Okay. Since there are no substantive changes, staff recommends that the Commission approve the fiscal year 2025-2029 strategic plan for submission as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes.
I move to accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodruff, second by Commissioner Harvey Lowe. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 24. Regarding the renewal of the agency contract with Pearson View. Chief Financial Officer Renata Williams.
Good afternoon again, Chair. Discussion and possible action regarding the renewal of agency contract with Pearson View for license examination, development, and administrative services. Just to give you some background, as you know, TREC and TLCB administers examinations to applicants as a final step towards licensure for all licenses regulated by the agency. Historically, the agency has used a third-party vendor to administer these exams. The applicants pay the exam provider directly, with a small portion of the exam fee, which is $10, returned to the agency from Pearson View. Since 2020, the average amount the Commission has received from the $10 exam fee is approximately $485,000. TLCB has received about $5,000. The total contract value that the vendor will receive is over $1 million, and that's what triggers the requirement for the Commission to approve the contract renewal and delegate authority to the Executive Director. The Commission entered into the contract with Pearson View for the license examination, development, and administrative services on June 15, 2020, and that had an initial term of 2 years, with 2 additional renewal periods for a total of 6 years. The initial term expired August 1st of 2022, and the Commission delegated authority for the Executive Director to exercise a 2-year renewal, which expires August 31st of 2024. The staff recommendation before you today is for the Commission to delegate authority to the Executive Director to exercise the second 2-year renewal term on the agency's contract with Pearson View. And this would be effective September 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2026.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodruff to accept staff recommendation. Second, Commissioner Brown. Any discussion?
Renata, this is the final extension, so it's...
Yes, sir.
So when this final extension expires, we go out for an RFQ.
Yes, sir.
And when we contracted with Pearson View, were there other
Yes, sir.
proposals, other submissions to that
Yes,
RFQ?
sir, there were.
How many?
I recall it 2. There were 4, but then there was 2 in the
Okay,
final.
so we do have good participation in,
Yes.
in the market with respect to that service.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 26. Discussion and possible action regarding future agenda items. Anything y'all specifically want on the agenda? Okay. That doesn't mean it will be a short agenda, okay?
This means we don't like it.
Agenda item 27, future meeting dates. I'll show our next meeting to be August the 19th in Austin. Looking at a morning meeting and an afternoon workshop if needed. After that, it will be November 4th in Austin, November 5th for the workshop, and then February 10th in Austin. That's also during Texas Realtors winter meetings, followed by a workshop on the 11th. We've been Valentine's Day like 3 out of the last 4 years, so yeah. You've saved me some chocolates. Okay. Before we adjourn, again, huge kudos to everybody that came. What a great turnout. I am so glad we had to delay and open the other room. I appreciate y'all attending. We're here to help move the agency forward. Please let us know what we can do. And kudos to staff for bringing all the reports, all the audio, all the video. Anyway, I will now adjourn the meeting at 1:57 p.m.
Oh, sign out.
Sign out. Sign out.